Hey everybody, welcome back to the final segment of this beginner Pysanky egg that we've been working on. So the egg was finished completely through all of our segments. We've gone all the way through penciling, waxing white, waxing yellow, waxing green, waxing orange, waxing red, and the last time after you left, I put it in the black dye, and we're going to pick up there. We're going to take this out of the black dye now, very carefully. It's been in there a little while. It needed probably about 5 minutes to get a good black color. I have other black dyes that might have dyed it more quickly, but this was the one I chose to put it in this time, and that's how long it took. So you got to keep checking it. You can't leave it in like... I wouldn't leave it in any longer than 5 minutes. If you don't get good color after 5 minutes, I would try a different dye. I would do something. But the problem is if you leave it in too much longer than 5 minutes, it actually starts to etch the egg. And what etch means is to take away the surface. So it might look black on the surface if you left it in a really long time, say a half hour. But you'd see kind of a funny little powderiness almost, and a alkaline sheen to the egg. And what that would mean is that there's part of the eggshell that's starting to come off because you've left it in too long. There's vinegar in these dyes, and vinegar is an etching agent. And that's another thing that you can look up, and maybe another tutorial I'll do sometime about etching eggs. But anyway, we've got a nice black color. It didn't start to etch. It was in there about 5 minutes, and now we're going to remove the dye. One thing that is helpful when you're removing dye is to coat the egg with a little bit of oil. I use olive oil because it helps the wax come off easier, and you don't get splotches as you're removing, and you don't get dye loss. So a lot of people have started using this. I don't know, this is something new. When I started doing this craft, 30 years ago, that certainly wasn't something we did. But it's something that somebody discovered at some point, and it's a really good tip because I do it all the time now. So I use just a regular kitchen basting brush and cover the egg in oil. Now, normally, I use what's called a craft dryer to take off my dye from my eggs. This is a craft, or not my dye, my wax. This is a craft dryer. And it, if I can turn it on here, I've got it on a switch. There we go. It's hot, really, really hot. It heats up quickly, and it melts the wax off very quickly and easily. However, because you don't have one of these probably, although you could use a household blow dryer, but it'll blow your egg across the room. If you decide to try that, be sure you put it inside of a bowl, like a Tupperware bowl or a Cool Whip container or something like that, so that your egg doesn't go flying across the room. And you could try that. It's a very easy way to remove the wax from an egg. But you don't have that probably. So we're going to do it old school with a candle. And I haven't done an egg, I have to admit, I haven't done an egg with oil on it in this fashion. So I hope I didn't just mess up, because it's probably going to be a little hard to hold on to. Ready for a new candle there. When you're removing your wax this way, you want to hold your egg in the candle flame, but not directly. You want to hold it off to the side of it. So hopefully our video will pick this up. Once again, I am working on top of this kind of egg pillow thing. If I were to drop my egg, it probably wouldn't break. I say probably because it might, but I don't think it would. So I'm going to try my hardest not to drop my egg, though that would be bad. And because of the oil I put on it, I'm actually going to hold on to my egg. Well, I can't do that. I'm just going to hold on to it with a paper towel. Well, we'll just do our best here. Okay, so I'm going to take the egg, move the camera up just a little. There we go. And you hold it right next to the candle flame. Just enough that the candle flame sort of starts to bend around it a little bit. And then wipe. And wipe. Let me try and get even a better angle for you here. Let me move the camera a little bit. And wipe. There are other methods of removing the wax. You can also put these in the oven at a low temperature, like 200 degrees, and with the door open on the oven for maybe 5 minutes. The problem with that is, and I've had this happen, is that it partially cooked the eggs. And so when I went to empty the eggs, they were partially cooked, and unfortunately I had to make the holes on the eggs a lot bigger in order to get the insides out. So it didn't exactly completely ruin them, but like say if I'd have been doing it for somebody else, they wouldn't have been usable. Just for my own collection, they were still fine. I also have tried removing the wax with Goo Gone. It will work, but you run the risk of losing some of your dye if you're not careful, or if the dye doesn't set well or whatever. So I have completely given up using any kind of like lighter fluid or Goo Gone or anything like that, any kind of solvent to remove my wax. To me, it's not worth the risk. The dryer is really the thing that I like. It works really, really well. This takes, I would have already been done with the dryer. And in fact, now that I've shown you how to do it with the flame, I'm going to go ahead and finish it with the dryer, because it's not rocket science. I just showed you how to do it, so now you know. Now you'll know how to do it this way too. With the dryer, I move it around because you don't want the egg or the dryer to stay in one position too long, because once again, you could cook your egg. So you might wonder then, well, why don't you just work with empty eggs? You can work with empty eggs, and a lot of people do. There's some advantages to it. For one thing, you don't run the risk of breaking a full egg when you go to empty it later, or you don't you don't run the risk of breaking a decorated egg, is what I meant to say. If you're emptying undecorated eggs and one breaks, no big deal. You just get another egg out. But when you're emptying a decorated egg, that means all of your work just was for nothing. Well, it wasn't for nothing. It would be for experience. And that's what I always tell people too, in case they drop an egg at any point in time and it's ruined. It's like, you do it for the experience of the joy of decorating it. You don't do it for the finished product so much. I know that's kind of hard to believe if you've just spent hours on an egg and then it breaks, but we've all had it happen, so it'll happen to you someday too if you get into this hobby. I guarantee you. See how fast that was? So check it out. I'm going to do the back where I wrote April 20, 2021 on it. So the next step for this egg will be varnishing. You have to varnish before you remove, or before you empty the egg, you have to varnish. And the reason for that is that if you empty the egg before you varnish, just the moisture from the egg, the interior of the egg, is going to remove some of your dye. The dyes are water soluble. You have to use an oil-based varnish. I use something called Sign Painter's One Shot. It's expensive, but it's great, and it doesn't yellow, and it doesn't harden in the can like a lot of them do. There's our egg. There's our picture, and there's our egg. And then on the back, the April 2021. I do have videos on how to empty the egg out there. And if anybody's interested in any of the products that I've used, I'd be happy to send you links for those. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been super helpful to you. And feel free to get in touch with me if you have any egging questions.